Have fewer ministers, have fewer ministries, cut costs, cut jobs, it all sounds good, but MMP is about appeasing all parties and ministerial jobs are created, not cut back. So, can David Seymour's plan to cut things back really work? We'll put it to him. Welcome to the program.
Are we paying these people to front up, or are we paying them to fly to Wellington to eat their lunch? Should you really lose your career for refusing to take part in a 90-minute lesson about Māori culture? This government doesn't actually have any idea how to get economic growth. Show us what you made of, Prime Minister.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan, Garner.
Okay, you're with the Editor-in-Chief. Nice to have you along. Good evening, everybody. I'm Duncan, Garner, and welcome. Please subscribe. Always helps us stay around in the business, so we appreciate if you subscribe. Just press the button and away you go. David Seymour, he will join me shortly. He's proposing fewer ministers and getting rid of various portfolios and ministries. It's long been an ACT policy to have smaller government, but in reality, MMP is about appeasing your partners and handing out jobs to satisfy them and shut them up, basically. I'll also ask him about the upcoming budget, and is this government really driving austerity when it's spending more than any other government has before them in New Zealand's history? So let's go.
It's the Slam Dunk.
Okay, so David Seymour, he wants fewer ministers and fewer portfolios. It's always been ACT's policy to have smaller government. It's a worthy goal, but in reality, no government under MMP has ever done this. Ever since the days of Jim Bolger's first MMP government, and I was there and I saw the horse trading up close and personally, it's been 20 ministers in cabinet, 8 outside. You can sometimes add to that parliamentary under-secretaries, which is a way of keeping some loudmouth backbench problem child MP busy with the illusion that he or she's important and on their way towards holding a cabinet spot. You just sort of keep them out there. But every time you create a portfolio, it has to come with staff attached to ministerial offices. It costs millions of bucks every year. And staff hiring and firing, office space, cars, transport, flights for the minister and staff. The list goes on and on and on. National did it with New Zealand First in 1996. First-time MPs like Deborah Morris became the Youth Affairs Minister. Labor did it after that, and some MPs like David Seymour, even after he had the Māori Affairs portfolio stripped from him, he got the flaky role as Minister of State, whatever that meant. So he could keep his ministerial salary and perks and not cause Helen Clark any issues within the caucus, so they make the Ministers of State. Even after Jim Bolger was rolled by Shipley, I recall he stayed on as the Minister of State, so he could keep all his perks and funding and salary and everything in the manner he'd become accustomed to. So it's about not losing face, you see. It's about access to Crown limos. Normal MPs take taxis. Ministers are driven in chauffeured limos. Simple. Seymour's idea to cut back is laudable, but not even ACT has pushed for this when it got its chance to be part of government. It didn't do this. That's why Seymour was being labelled a hypocrite. Like the rest of them, it pushed its agenda and created a new Ministry of Regulation to cut regulation. We'll ask you about that shortly. Ministerial jobs and perks and baubles of office are always used to horse trade in Parliament, and it costs the taxpayer, that's you and me, millions and millions every year in unnecessary costs. They say they care about the taxpayer's dollar, but then they willy-nilly throw taxpayers' cash around to put people into these dubious jobs, dubious outcomes, if they have any outcome at all. Helen Clark gave Judith Tizard the role of Minister for Auckland, which was dubbed the Minister for holding Helen Clark's handbag. With the factions in Labour, it was well known that both factions had certain numbers of ministerial seats set aside. There was no way Clark could have a small cabinet. If Seymour had his way, according to his later speech, new MPs and ministers, new MP and Minister for the South Island, James Meagher, would lose his job. But so would Minister of Racing, Winston Peters. These are just some of the unusual portfolios or jobs handed out. If I went through all of them right now, you'd probably charge me for your time. And John Key did it too. He didn't even need the Māori Party to go into government, but he gave Peter Sharples and Taliana Turia expensive ministerial jobs outside of cabinet in his government. It was if it was their money, their own private business, this would never happen. Someone else's money, then it's thrown around in an attempt to appease coalition partners and keep them on side. It's the cost of democracy. And Seymour's stance is all very well, but in reality, no party has ever gone down this lean, smaller approach to running the country. I mean, I was there for almost 20 years as a parliamentary journalist. It's very much a club. The only ones to genuinely challenge that club in the last 30 years, a couple of people. Rodney Hyde, with his campaign to reduce parliamentary perks. He was widely unpopular for that. With all the MPs, they didn't like him. And now Te Pāti Māori, who have genuinely decided to not play by the rules of Parliament, and they're genuine outsiders in the system, except, of course, for taking the generous salaries and perks, which they haven't turned their nose up at all. Oh, no. Every MMP government since 96 has had a large 28 ministers. That's almost half the members of every government enjoy ministerial salaries and perks. The other 30-odd MPs fight to become select committee chairman or whips, and that comes with a bigger pay packet as well. In government, only a very few MPs are on the normal basic MP salary. It's all about who can get what job and who gets the most pay. I agree with Seymour. I think there are far too many ministers doing bugger all and who have dubious jobs and titles, and they're simply created to keep everyone happy. But in truth, the heavy lifting is done in every government, usually by about 7 or 8 great ministers. The rest have bit part roles. It means millions and millions and millions of bucks are spent on keeping the peace in an MMP coalition by handing out jobs. Parliament in general is a club and they feather their own nest. In the real world, we've all faced major cutbacks and are doing the work of 2 or 3 staff. We've all seen the layoffs in our businesses and people are not replaced, and we've all picked up the slack for little or no increase in pay. Right now, thousands of IT workers in health are losing their jobs, but we still have too many ministers, too many MPs in my view for a country of this size. I doubt any government will act on Seymour's policy. Even ACT didn't when it had the chance 18 months ago. It didn't. I think we should have 99 MPs, max. Get rid of 21 MPs. It'll save $10 million on the spot. I know it's probably chump change in the overall scheme of things, but it's the gesture and the nod to the rest of us that if we're all cutting back, then why aren't they? I mean, Debbie Nadi-Wapaka still hasn't explained to any of us why she had such a high travel bill to fly from New Plymouth. And Prime Minister Chris Luxon has something like 7 staff dedicated to his social media postings. If he was forced to pay for them out of his own money, would he? And could he justify it? I'm saying all this to put Seymour's speech into some kind of perspective. For a man about to become Deputy PM and a man who wants smaller government and less spending, this government, he won't like this, but this government is about to spend more in the upcoming budget than any other government in the history of New Zealand. Austerity? Sure. They're cutting back a bit, but Seymour should probably be embarrassed to be part of a government that remains such a big spender and borrower in such difficult times. Let's go.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, so the man who wants fewer ministers, fewer portfolios, no ministers outside of cabinet, no associate roles, leaner, smaller government is David Seymour. But he's also part of a government that's the biggest spending government in New Zealand's history. Despite the recent announced cutbacks by Finance Minister Nicola Willis, is it really an austere approach or is it more of the same? This is a government that will spend more this budget than the last budget and than any budget that Labour oversaw. Okay, Minister, nice to have you on the program. David, g'day, nice to see you.
Pleasure.
Hey, so you made the speech today around a smaller ministry, fewer ministers. I mean, that's always been ex-policy, hasn't it, to have smaller government, right?
Yeah, we raised something very much like this in about 2018. I had a members' bill at the time reducing the size of Parliament and the executive. And I've now been in the middle of government for 18 months, and I think it's time to bring it back. I think the government has done what it said it was going to do around the cost of living, the crime, the co-governance. But I still hear a lot of people out there saying, what's the plan? And is the boat really going fast enough? Or are the fastest boats the ones that are taking people away from the country? So while I'm committed to the government, of course, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I think you've also got to keep one eye open to what sort of things we might do in the future to make things better. And when I look at the setup of government, no person who was a manager of a business would have 28 people in charge of 41 departments and then say, actually, some departments have 19 people in charge of them. Some people have jobs that aren't actually connected to any department, such as being, say, the Minister for Auckland or the Minister for Child Poverty Reduction, both of which were created by Jacinda Ardern. And then there are some people who are in charge of 7 different departments. And the result is this mass spaghetti diagram where nobody has their full focus on one thing. No one's truly accountable to anybody. Everybody's in charge of everything and nothing. And I think we could do a lot better by being a bit more like, say, Ireland, where they have 16 ministers, have far fewer departments, and a lot more accountability. And over the course of this century, Ireland has been gone from being about the same or poorer than New Zealand to nearly twice as rich.
Yeah, and I've been around Parliament, since the 90s, and I saw Bolger form his first government. I saw 28 ministers there, 8 outside the cabinet and 20 in, and I've seen every government since. Helen Clark had to appease her factions. John Key gave the Māori Party associate and outside roles, even if he didn't even need them. So, I mean, all parties, all of the major parties have been doing this for decades. It's the club. It's what they do, and they have to appease the coalition partners. How do you get around that?
Well, I think you've got to start saying it. I mean, some people this week have said, "Oh, but you're a hypocrite because you created the Ministry for Regulation." That's true. I actually do think it's justified. You're part of a government that has all of this, but the truth is that for 30 years, every single party has been involved in some way expanding government. I mean, in fairness, when we got the Ministry for Regulation, we actually got rid of the Productivity Commission, so we did a 1-for-1, but still. Everyone's been involved in this. Someone's got to start calling it out and saying it's time to go in the opposite direction. Because I think, part of the problem, there's a lot of frustration that we're not getting enough change fast enough. And I think sometimes that's fair, sometimes it's not. But part of the problem, as you just described, is that you create a job to keep people happy. But the purpose of a job is to get work done and solve a problem for the public. And I think we've lost our nerve a little bit, lost our focus. I also think that when you create a ministry, like you say, I'm going to have a minister for the child poverty reduction, it's kind of more of a marketing tool than a job that's actually going to reduce child poverty. And of course, that's what happened. It made no difference to child poverty.
It's like Minister for Auckland, Minister for South Island. I mean, it's marketing. Minister for Auckland. I mean, Judith Tizard held Helen Clark's handbag. Minister for South Island, that was to appease the people at Dunedin Hospital. I mean, these people don't even have ministries. They don't. I mean, they'll probably have a staff attached to it somewhere, maybe not. But it's marketing, and it's costly marketing.
Yeah. Well, look, I'd start with some principles. I'd say, first of all, no ministers outside cabinet. So everyone's sitting around the table, and I'd cap it at 20. Then I'd say no department has more than one minister. So every chief executive of a department with a budget is accountable to one person. And of course, that person's also accountable for their performance. At the moment, MB has 19 ministers. So who's responsible to who? Nobody. And then I would say each minister or each portfolio must have an actual department. You can't be a minister unless you've got an actual department with a budget, and you have to be the only minister for that department with a budget. I think if we did that, we'd probably go from about 82 portfolios to about 30. We'd have a few less departments. We'd go from about 41 down to 30, and we'd have fewer ministers. We'd go from 20 down to 28, and everything would be so much simpler. Yeah,
it would. But I mean, you were in coalition negotiations with Christopher Luxon, just over a year ago. You had the chance to say, right, we won't have any of our people ministers. Just me as the leader. I'll be a minister, and that's it. And you had the chance to do that.
Well, first of all, if we were to do it this way, ACT would have 3 or 4 out of the 20, just out of proportion.
Sure. Yep.
So it wouldn't quite be like that. But your basic point is right. I didn't argue for this when we formed the last government. We didn't campaign on this. We campaigned on it 5 or 6 years ago. We were basically just saying, let's get a government together and solve the immediate problems, the cost of living, the crime, the co-governance. I think we can point to pretty good progress, if not success, of those. Now, having been in it for 18 months, I've sort of looked around and thought, okay, about half time in the government. What else can we do to make the boat go faster? And this is one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I look around, and maybe the media is not a good example, David, but I look around here and what we've been through, and we've slashed and burned and cut because we've had to, because their revenue base is reduced, just like government revenue base has reduced. I'm my own producer. I used to have staff, don't have staff. So we've all had to cut our cloth to fit, and it's been a harsh, tough world. And I wonder if government sits, oblivious to that. Not oblivious, but just aside from that, because it continues like nothing else has happened.
Well, I mean, some people would point to Radio New Zealand. In the last 5 years, they've gone from 280 staff to, I think, 315. That's 35 over 180. I mean, help me here. That's
it's huge.
Almost a 20% increase.
It's the opposite.
They're the only media organisation I know of that's actually increased their numbers of people in the last 5 years, and that's probably just an example of it. I'm a shareholding minister in Radio New Zealand, so again, like all these things, I'm part of the government.
Yeah, well, are they given too much funding?
Well, let's see. The budget is the way to decide that, and maybe there'll be a change in the budget. Maybe there won't. I'm not allowed to talk about it. No one is until we release it, but that's just the way it is. But I just make the point that ACT's always been a party of ideas. Whether you agree with the ideas or not, it's a different matter. And just because we've gone into government, it doesn't mean we have to stop thinking. No.
And have you had much pushback from Winston and from Chris Luxon around your ideas? Because you'd be taking away the racing portfolio, you'd be taking away roles from yourselves, you'd be taking away roles from National Party, but from all ministers. So have you had much feedback? Any text or hey, what are you talking about, David?
Haven't had them rushing to the phone, but look, I think they know that I'm committed to the government we have now. We all signed up to it. But maybe if the people decide that they want to elect our three parties to form another government, I think one of the things we're putting on the agenda is, hey guys, look, we could share some pain here, cut back our own roles, but actually make our roles a lot more efficient and get more done. And that might actually feel better and make it more likely that we win again 3 years later.
Yeah, I mean, go the whole hog. I mean, 120 MPs. I mean, of a country of this size and population, do we need that many? Is 99 best way to go? I know this debate's been had many times. We've all covered the story, but there's MPs that do nothing, David.
There's some that work hard. I mean, I look at Brooke Van Velden worked very hard and subsequently won an electorate, actually. But there's certainly some. I genuinely wonder if you're a backbench Green MP, you don't hold an electorate, you're not a leader, you're not in government. I actually do wonder what they do, but that's up to them. I mean, all I would say is that if you think about it, there's 120 MPs. You need about half of them to form a government, so that leaves half of them in opposition. So you've got about 60 opposition MPs, and they're taking on 60,000 bureaucrats in the government. So, if I was worried about reducing the size of government, I'd probably look at the 15,000 odd extra unelected people rather than, you go down to 99 MPs, then suddenly you're down to 49 opposition MPs holding the whole thing accountable. So I'm actually in favour of having a decent sized opposition, because that's how you get the voice and the criticism of the people against the government of the day, whether it's us in or someone else entirely. So look, I know people say that let's get rid of the MPs. I'm not so sure about that. The ministers, yes. The bureaucrats, yes. The departments, yes. But MPs in and of themselves, as a representative of the people, I'm a bit more wary about.
Yeah, I mean, you look at any size government though. So a government needs to be 60 plus, obviously to form, and almost half those are in the executive. Almost half in the executive. It's been like that for 30 years. That's what you're talking about. I mean, 1 and 2 MPs in government are likely to be around the executive.
Yep, and that's why I think it's important that the government should be a small minority within the parliament. You should have most of the parliament representing the people holding the government accountable. But as you say, you get towards 30 executive members, then actually a quarter of the whole parliament and half of the government side are actually the government.
Yeah.
I'd rather see a lot more people holding the government accountable.
So this will be a policy you go into the next election with. Looking at the next budget, people are saying, there's new austerity moves from this government, and they're going to be a bit tighter on things. They've reduced it in Nicola Willis' speech this week. But it's still the largest spending government in New Zealand's history. Now, you're a party of smaller government. If you had it your way, I think you'd probably cut out a lot more cost. You're spending more this year in this year's budget than any other budget in New Zealand's history.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that is true every year.
Of course, yes.
I don't think the budget has ever actually reduced in dollar terms. But I take your wider point. Has this government made the kind of savings that ACT's campaigned on? Every year in opposition, we put out an alternative budget, and we showed how we'd save a lot more, we get rid of a lot more departments. No, it hasn't. That's the nature of being in a coalition with two other parties that have different economic policies from ours. Has this government saved more money with ACT in it than it would have otherwise? Yeah, I can guarantee you it has. I can't give away discussions in cabinet or anything like that, but I believe ACT being there has saved the taxpayer a lot of money. And we will continue to do that. Has it gone as far as we'd like? No. Has it gone further than it would without ACT? Absolutely.
I mean, how much further would you like it to go? I mean, when we spoke just on the eve of the election, or I think heading into during the election, I think you wanted 15,000 public servants, a reduction of 15,000 public servants. How many have there been?
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I look at it, from about 2012 to about 2016, we had a stable size of public service. We had about 47,000 people. We got up to about 62,000 at the peak. Now that's 15,000 more. You just cast your mind back to 2012, 2013, 2016, whatever. I mean, it was a pretty good time. Everything seemed to work quite well. So I still believe that we can function with 47,000. That doesn't include, say, teachers, for example. I mean, obviously the population grows, more kids, more teachers. I get that. Same thing with health. But we're talking about just the core Wellington bureaucracy. And I think that could be brought down. I campaigned on it. I'm in a government that has a much larger, executive, but that's the nature of coalitions.
Yeah, I wonder under MMP is your sort of policy possible under MMP? Because we all know the horse trading. We've all been part of it. We've seen it. We've reported on it. You've been part of it. Nowhere in the history of MMP has there been a small cabinet.
Well, it's impossible if no one even starts making the case for it. It may be possible if we get out there and argue for it, and people say, actually, yeah, I want to see a more responsive, smaller, more efficient, more accountable government. And this basic philosophy of no minister without an actual department with an actual budget, no department with more than one minister, and every minister inside the 20 at the cabinet table, no one sitting outside, everyone at the same table. Those three principles could do a lot of good for us. And who knows? Yeah. The truth is, whether it's possible is up to your listeners.
Is it frustrating? Is it frustrating being part of a government and that is under MMP sort of formation? So you can't always get your way. Obviously, that's the way it is. But that put to my point about the largest spending government in history. Well, I know they always are, and you have cut back, but there's certainly areas to cut back on further. But you're not doing that. Why?
Well, I mean, all of these things come down to a decision that has to be made internally within the government. And I don't want to give too much away because I respect my colleagues, keep my confidentiality and vice versa. But I can guarantee you half the time the conversation is ACT saying we should save more and other people saying, well, we think we should keep this for X reason. That is the conversation, 95% of the time. And that's no surprise. You see what our earlier budget is. I know people say it's frustrating. That's true. However, what's a lot more frustrating is having a Labour Party with the Greens and especially Te Pāti Māori back in government. So our goal is to keep the government and make it better.
In terms of cuts in this budget, I know you can't say much, but there's some big Labour Party policies that have remained under your government. Big gold-plated stuff. We don't have the revenue base anymore. We're still borrowing $500 million a week. Are they going to change, or do you have to keep rolling them over because the public expects them now, and there'll be too much public backlash, and social sort of unrest?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get out of sync with the budget announcements, but I mean, if you look at what Nicola's said, we're going to come in 1.1 billion under our target. Now, you don't come in 1.1 billion without under your target. Unless you're prepared to make, decisions in the hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars, especially when you consider we got to spend more on defence, especially when you consider the pressure on health and also the pressure on interest rates and government debt. So if we're doing all of that, then clearly we're making some savings, and what those are, that's up to others to announce as the budget approaches or on budget day.
When you become Deputy Prime Minister, do you have more of a say? We have more influence or the same level of influence? How's that going to work?
There's really the same level of influence. I mean, I remain one of 20 voices around a cabinet table and one of 3 leaders in a coalition government. So I don't see it as changing the power or influence I have. The power and influence I have, I think, ultimately comes down to how well I reflect the ideas and concerns of people, because that's where your real political power comes from.
In terms of public servants, final question, we were speaking about it before. There were 62. What is it now?
It's just over 60, if I recall the last number I saw.
Is that right? So you've despite all the headlines, you've only reduced it by 2,000.
Well, in fairness, as Labor were going out, they pumped it up to about 65 at the last minute. So we started off a bit higher. So yeah, look, we haven't cut as much as ACT would. Everyone knows that. I think we've had more reductions than we would without ACT.
Will we? Yeah, sure. Will we see more public servants lose their jobs in the coming 18 months?
I don't want to get into that. I mean, I obviously think we do need a smaller public service. Doesn't mean people have to be fired. Sometimes it just means you don't hire more people.
Yeah. David, we'll leave it there. Always appreciate your time. Much appreciated.
Not a worry. Thanks,
okay.
Duncan.
All the best.
Have a great day.
Okay, take care. Ta-da. Thank you.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Yeah, okay. I reckon he's clear. This guy's got a Christchurch producer Isaac. This guy's got a grip on his portfolios, isn't he? He knows what he stands for, right?
Yeah.
You can't argue that he comes on here and doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, exactly. Yeah, he's good. He doesn't walk into Parliament and make a statement without excuse me, without having the facts or at least his opinion numbers to back it up.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like we're getting very used to politicians saying things, and then you kind of ask them questions about it, and they hit you with the blah, 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 blah. Not going to throw names around, but you're definitely seeing that a bit at the moment.
Yeah.
But you can't argue with the fact that he comes forward and he's got an idea and he goes, here's how we'll do it.
Yeah, Except it is hypocritical, right? He was in a coalition negotiation 18 months ago and didn't want fewer ministers then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mind you.
Yeah, it's interesting, but
because in the real world, it's hard to cut back. You see, even in Parliament. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so mate, let us to the editor. Do you want to read this one?
Yep, I can indeed. This is an email from. Oh, it's a long email from. Are we saying the name? Is that okay?
We might just keep her. We might just keep her name out of it. But I know it's there. But we'll keep it out of it. I reckon. Yeah.
Cool. That's good. It says, "Hi Duncan. I was very interested to listen to your podcast about care homes and in particular Bupa Foxbridge in Hamilton. I worked there as a village assistant a couple of years ago. I really loved my job until Bupa decided to restructure their management there. In their wisdom, they amalgamated the role of village manager and care home manager without putting support in place for the newly created general manager. The person who stepped into this role was the existing village manager, who was brilliant and did her best. She was replaced by staff and they loved her. She was respected by staff and they loved her. Because nobody was then actually doing the village manager's job, I was thrown in by default to cover the role. No discussion about it. It kind of just happened. After months of me doing this, the newly appointed general manager was offered a position elsewhere, which he took, and Teresa was then appointed. The very first thing Teresa did when she arrived was order a do not disturb sign to put on her office door. This was just the beginning. She swept in and the friendly atmosphere that there had been previously towards residents and staff disappeared. She didn't have a friendly good morning for anyone, and the residents did not like her. My daughter at the time had to have surgery in Wellington. She had 2 young children, and her husband had young onset Parkinson's and was not able to look after the children on his own. I applied for leave so I could go and help them, but Teresa declined my leave application. A new village manager had been appointed and asked for annual leave, which she had approved, even though she'd only been at Foxbridge a few months. Teresa told me that as I had already taken some annual leave, brackets, the holidays I ever took whilst working there, or the only holidays I ever took while working there, close brackets, I had to stay and work over the Christmas period. There was much toing and froing over this decision, and I eventually got the union involved. I felt it was pretty heartless. I felt like it was a pretty heartless decision that had been made, and working under her management was not appealing to me, so I resigned. The residents were astounded at her decision. Some of the things that went on at Foxbridge Care Home did disturb me, and I am now firmly of the opinion that there is no way I want to be cared for in one of these types of institutions. Keep up the good work on the subject of care homes. It is certainly something that needs to be exposed, and you're doing a great job, Duncan. Warm regards.
Yeah, so I get lots of these emails still. There's so many emails that come in. I don't run all of them, but probably should. But there's so many of a similar vein. It's just sounded too nasty, didn't it? Foxbridge is the one that we keep coming back to. Bupa Foxbridge is the one in Hamilton. It's the one that sort of stands out as being a shocker, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah. Well,
it's real interesting because I'm sure. Yeah, I was talking to my mother about this because our grandma is in a care home, and she was saying that she, like, for the most part, hasn't really experienced any of that negative stuff, which is great. Like, it's cool that she and my grandma are getting good care, But yes. It's real disheartening hearing it happening so much to other people, and hearing other people who have worked there before be so avid that they will never, ever, ever end up in one of these institutions.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. All right, brother, that was well said. And keep the emails coming. We really appreciate it.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.
Okay, that's us, folks. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your feedback and your support. Just get in touch through our social media at Duncan Garner Podcast, TikTok, Instagram. Flick us an email, duncan@rover.nz. We're always right at the end of the email. To my team, Isaac, thank you, sir. Always well done, mate. Always appreciate it. We'll do it again on Monday. Remember, life's a dress rehearsal. No curtain raiser. This is it. We live in one of the best places on earth. So get out, make the most of it. Enjoy it. Have some fun. Have a great day and have a great rest of the evening. Take care. Ta-da.
Editor-in-Chief with Duncan Garner.